So in the day of this new age, laptops still need to be cooled. Heat's still a challenge, and you can see that most laptops still have vents. You can see there's a vent here. They've got vents on the side. Because there's airflow going through them, airflow can actually go through any of these connections. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take the back of this apart and see if there is lint and dust that's caught in here. So on the back side or underneath is usually the inlet, so like a vacuum, this is where it sucks in, and then the out airflow goes out through there. But there's also an inflow through the bottom here. So sorry for the video, I don't have my holder with me, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to take it apart, and while I'm doing that, describe what it is that I'm doing. So the symptom of this is customer said, hey, I have an issue with it. It's fan makes a very loud noise every time I take it off the docking station. I said, okay, let me take a look at it, and then when I asked her more about is it loud all the time when you take it off, every single time, and she said, well, most of the time. And then I said, would you take it off the docking station for me now? And she took it off the docking station, and the fan noise did not go very loud. It was at the minimal. So I asked what kind of program she runs. She said normal everyday office programs, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, Skype, Teams, etc. I said, okay, not an issue that I can tell so far with, as far as what she's using. But what I wanted to do was just trying to establish why that could be. So I also went to the manufacturing, and they don't have a BIOS update for this guy. So if there's no BIOS update, there's not much I can do at that point. Firmware and everything else looked up to date. So now we're going to take this guy apart and see if we see any dust in here. There may be a little bit, there may be a lot. When there is dust that impedes the airflow, what ends up occurring is that the heatsink that's trying to cool the processor gets hotter and hotter because the processor is working, and it's the one that's producing the heat. And when that happens, it tends to go slower. When it goes slower and hotter, the fans will spin up faster and faster and faster, trying to cool off that processor. If it continues to do that and it gets hotter and hotter, that can happen if it's blocked or the fan doesn't work. At that point, what typically happens is the computer will just shut off. So confirmed software perspective, there's nothing issue. So now we're going to look at this computer here and see if maybe there's a lot of lit. So we can see a little bit of dust here and I'll kind of show the back end of this fan. So there's a little bit, there's nothing here, and I can move it freely, as you can see, and it rotates on its own when I let go for a little bit. So doesn't seem to be anything in here that would be really particularly identifying that may be the issue. But we got to take a look in between here, in between the grill, and see if there's some lint through there. Now I also have with me a can of air. Now the one thing you don't want to do with your can of air is point it straight down like this and blow with the cover on. So assuming that you did not take it apart, you had your fan on and you were just blowing through. The reason why is a couple of reasons. One, most likely if you have dust here or here, you could blow it back into the fan. If it gets caught in the blades, now you have a really big problem. Number two, the challenge with the fan is that this can, and I've seen it, so it's not a theory that you hear, it's not unheard of. I've seen it where someone will do this and they'll blow, and the next thing that happens is it breaks the fan. Either it presses too hard on this or the actual fan blades break. Now this is a very well balanced fan. If even one of those blades break, it's not going to operate correctly. It'll wobble at high speeds, it'll make noise, it'll make the machine vibrate. So just make sure that you're not pointing at this and then you're just pressing as fast as you can. The correct way that I would say is the correct way of blowing air is to hold the fan blade down as you're pushing the air, and then you let it slowly turn on your own. You don't ever let it get up to full speed from the air pressure, because again, that's a sure way to break this fan blade. So now what I'm going to do is just take a look and see if I can peek inside somehow without having to take much apart and identify whether or not there is whether there's blockage there. So give me just one moment. I'm going to hold my camera here and use my eyes. Okay. So in most of the laptops, you can take the top off. In this case, they have it buried under this plastic chassis. So I'd have to actually take about, oh boy, I'd have to take the entire chassis off just to take a peek at this fan. But the trick that I can do is to have light come in here and just visually look through here. And if I can see dust or if I can't see any light, that tells me that there's a lot blocking. So, and I can see a good amount of light. I don't see hardly any dust at all. So I'm not sure if the camera will catch this. Yeah, it's not. Let me try. Well, there, you can see at least the light, and you can probably identify a little bit of dust on the grills, but plenty of light coming through. And all this that tells me is there's not a blanket. I've seen it where there's literally a blanket of dust where you roll and you can literally like grab it and pinch it, and it's a huge lint as if you took it out of the dryer. It can be like that. So in this case, I don't see that, so I'm going to just blow air through this way. Again, air sucks in through here and blows out. So I don't want to push in this way, because if there is dust here, and there is, it'll just go towards the fan blades, and it'll get all over here, and then I turn it on and it messes it up. So I'm going to do that real quick. See, I'm going to hold this right. So again, I'm going to hold my fan blade. I don't want it to let it spin out. So let me do that real quick. So for this purpose of this video, I'm just holding it this way. And again, I'm going to hold the fan blade. And then I'm going to just push out like this. Try not to use the full power of this air, because it's, again, just the air alone, and I've seen this, can actually break a fan blade. And then around here, I'll try and see, and I'm not seeing any dust at all come out. So most likely this is a nice clean fan. There's not really an issue with heat. With respect to you know, the amount of dust coming in. So all right, perfect. And then I'm just gonna generally blow a little bit of air on the laptop and around the other areas. All right, and that's it. So we have the laptop, and it's probably pretty evident that now you can see, if you go back to the beginning of the video, that there was quite a bit of dust, and now there's, you know, hardly any dust. So it's nice, it's clean, and we're set to go. So just be careful. I'm going to just put this back together. I hope this video has been helpful for any of you that are looking to clean out the fan. So salient points here to keep in mind is, when you're using the air compressor, don't press it all the way down like this without having your, well, don't press it all the way down, period, all the way, because you could break a fan blade. And when you are putting air through, make sure you're putting it through the inlet, and then it's going out. And you can, inlet's always on the bottom for these types of models, right? And then out here is out. And you'll know that because when you turn it on, wherever the hot air comes out of, that's the exit. So you want to clean this fan off. Really try and have the cover off, because if you even put moderate pressure from this pressurized can on here, you can break the fan blades. You can literally go shh, and all of a sudden clink, a fan blade breaks. And when that happens, it'll wobble, it'll vibrate, it'll stick, it'll heat up, and you'll have a lot more problems. And if you have the opportunity to take one of these apart, and it's a lot easier for you to get to that, you know, a lot of times, you know, it's just right there, and you can lift it up and you can see where that connection is, and you can get all the dirt off. But in this case, this was fine. And then I inspected it, and this might be a little easier, but I inspected it by just going through the grill, and you can see there's a lot of light coming in through. So that tells me that it's not blocked specifically from that. Thank you for watching. Subscribe. Put a comment if you've done something like this before, or you have other recommendations. I'd be more than happy to listen and write feedback.